three members of Chan's staff were busy engaging in small talk concerning the monster massacre video going viral in cyberspace. Local hunters were also searching for the unknown person. Anywhere, everyone was inquiring as to who that person was but could not make any information. A man in a green vest and glasses entered to see Sun Chenho. Looking up, he knew he was the director but had no clue as to why he was looking for him. Anyway, the director smiled mysteriously and took Channel outside to sit and chat on the top floor of the headquarters. While smoking a cigarette, the director questioned why Chenho was present at the scene of crime without taking anything. When he heard this, Chenho felt something was amiss, anticipating the director getting interested in that case. He even anticipated he would renew his license. But then, Chenho said, "If there is anything, I would have taken it already," making the director's eyes sparkle like stars. But immediately after, he apologized, saying that if Chenho did find something, he would surely appoint him. Playing dumb, Chenho made a forced laugh, saying there were only 7 days for his license to lapse. What was he thinking? But nevertheless, the director plunged into deep silence without uttering anything. The discussion plummeted into a cryptic and silent environment. To dispel this strange silence, Shin Hho had to pose another question. "So, what about you, Mr. Shin Chosen?" After some time, the director cut in suddenly. "Nothing. I only feared that you will trespass the line amidst the 7-aid test in a secluded forest." Shin Chosen was seriously practicing. "The simulation program will conclude within the next 10 minutes, the system warned. A gigantic rock materialized suddenly just after that announcement. She ran to it with a lightning-quick blow and then 2 steps forward. The rock broke into 2 after her mighty blow. Hardly 2 seconds later, another rock came out and kicked up dust in the air. Chin chose and still hadn't turned around, but she sensed this moment was not like the previous moments. One part of it just collapsed, opening up a leveled purple being. Within, the being jumped right out of the box and speedily approached Shinoze. She was taken aback. She faced around to attack it, ready to combat it with her sword. But abruptly another levy beast snuck up behind her and in no time seized her by surprise. The 2 beasts created pins or movement, and the one behind nipped on her shoulder. Simultaneously, the one in the front was mere inches from her face. In such a perilous situation, a voice spoke suddenly. "Done here." Shino regained her composure quickly, and the hand slowly dispersed. The training program was over, and the mimic forest disappeared at once. She was suspicious and turned around to where she had heard the voice. And there, the head of the Frost Soul clan smiled. There he gazed stern and invited her to speak. Chino Zen's voice resounded in the lab. "I am positive I can improve. Why did you leave in the middle like that?" But the leader cautioned her, "Don't overtrain." Since she was resting at once, she countered, "Isn't it you who advised me to do as much as I want, even though it is more than I can handle?" The leader changed the subject to overexertion training. Despite that, Shin Chosen maintained she understood her body and could continue training. Coming back to harshness, the leader inquired directly, "More than a Ho AI?" A screen materialized before their eyes with a chart. He told them, "The pink is the data of a healthy nervous system, and the green is the data of Shino Zen taken by the AI." Talking to actual data such as this left her with no choice but to beg, only having room to heavily sigh. The bearded leader immediately inquired from her why she was hiding something. According to the eye's analysis, her psychological disorder was a risk factor hindering her development. But she was still stubborn, refusing to speak, only stating that she wished to be in the top 5. The leader didn't believe Shin Chosen worked for such progress. Reaching level meant fame and richness coming like a hurricane. But before going on, he crushed the water bottle in his hand, saying that these weren't what she wanted. He bit his lip, his eyes brimmed with wrath. The only thing Shin Chosen needed was to kill all the monsters in this world. Proceeding to the headquarters of the H-Gang, 5 days before the licensing test, the game leader Lisu was going to enter a very secretive corridor. He took a step forward with his characteristic faceless look, then paused before a specific location. It was actually a very big door, strongly reinforced. After he tapped his fingerprint, it immediately opened. The foul smell inside made him fold his nose and grouse. How can you maintain such an atmosphere for so long? Most probably, we will have to upgrade the facilities here in this quarantine zone, particularly the airflow. Even the lead tube light units way up in the ceiling were also flashing due to electrical problems. We have to replace everything. Do you see that? Then he looked across into the corner where a guy in white attire was seated amidst animal carcasses. That guy was crazily chewing on something awfully awful. Laku had to yell, "Jingen!" before he contorted his bloody face to peep. Under the floor was a fresh pool of blood containing animal intestines, liver, and lungs, all badly dragged out. Looking like that, Laku was thrilled immensely because Jin was eating well. He encouraged him to eat more and sleep more in order to cut back on the effect of the medicine. He cleaned the blood on his face, his eyes with deep murderous intent. Jinin growled, "I surely will perform well at the forthcoming test. Breathe." 3 days prior to the licensing test, Dae Sung was still working diligently at his work. The system informed him that he had finished another task and raised the covenant level. He stood up, wrapping himself, standing on the snowcat mountaintop with his fire sword. He told Master, "Do you want to go back now?" After days of labor, he decided to return to the real world. At last, it was the licensing examination day, with a 25% rise in awakened participants compared to the previous year. Thus, the competition for the first half of this year's Hunter test was to be very fierce. The Hunter Association also altered the testing method this year in order to fit all the people. On the road, there was a Porsche racing. When it braked to a stop on the side of the road with a screech of tires, the reporters went wild, shoving and pushing, trying to get a photo. Lisa and Jinan, dressed up to the nines, were spotted on a red carpet receiving a reception no less than a rank. Select reporter Oram of SBC station immediately approached to interview and asked if the person sitting next to him was the newbie brought on board this year. While he asked him about his prediction for H's ranking in this competition, suddenly another journalist entered and hijacked Hess's incident of 2 years ago. Lisa C. was so irked. Those annoying reporters, they hadn't even reached an agreement yet and were already asking annoying questions. But he kept his professional smile on, apologized for the past incident, while Jinshin frowned in discomfort. Nevertheless, the journalist wasn't so easily dissuaded, sternly believing he was just shirking responsibility. But all of a sudden, Lisu placed his hand on the journalist's shoulder, promising they will play square this year. Then Lisu and Jinan haughtily spun and walked away. The constant flashing lights in the stadium, the other two went to the preparation room. Jain complained to Lisu that he should not have kept his mouth shut. Those reporters. Laku suddenly stopped and scolded Jinan, who was still laughing awkwardly, saying he was just joking. He knew Jinshin was playing along but warned him not to overplay it. If they were caught taking drugs, they would be in deep trouble. An abnormally tall, masked man crept up behind them, yelling, "Playing drugs? Let me join him." He spoke loudly. Surprised, Lisu turned around and identified him to be Director Hong Jin Jong, the man who headed the spies gang. He made a telling remark about how he was dressed, his mask like that of a monkey. But Hong Jin Jong just smiled happily and said he had to dress like that in order to get away from the reporters. Not forgetting to jeer Lee sequel, he said, "Unlike a man I loathe, I do not have to act in front of cameras, making me look different outside but burning with anger inside." Hong Jin Jong adjusted his hat and scrutinized Jinshin, grinning like an addict. The energy flow in him is comparatively stable, with some impurities. It appears the drug has been highly improved. Laku is to be praised for doing it in such a short time. Hong Jin Jong stared at Jinshin. Lisu took instant action between them to reprimand him, but he spoke softly. I wanted to catch a glance of the opponent slightly more, and warned him not to repeat what happened 2 years ago. Laku gritted his teeth in agreement, then led Jinin away immediately. Taking a walk some distance, Jinshin dared to glance back, asking, "Who is that dirty old man, having the gall to look at me with such criticism?" Al Lai directly told him to downplay his unease and observe the competition. The one thing Jinchai had to keep his eye on right now was getting close to Shino Z. She was texting while walking in front of them. Jinin glanced at her. While Lee Sequel had brought her, she was the new recruit that spies had worked hardest upon. But he smiled and said, even if there were tens of Shin CHXS, it would never be a problem. On the contrary, Liz remained alert because that old man certainly put much effort into her, so there might be unknown variables. Hearing that, Jinin wasn't fearful but appeared awfully inquisitive. Just contemplating hurting her was enough to awaken the strange power inside him. On the other side, Hong Jin Jong was waiting and thinking what Lee Sequel intended for this competition. But he absolutely trusted Shin Chosen. No matter what, she was going to emerge from this with strong instincts. He could sense a boundless, powerful energy approaching towards him. A young man with a stern face, clad quite ordinarily, was heading his way. Hong Jin Jong opened his eyes 3 parts in shock and 7 parts in awe of this newcomer until he walked away. Hong Jin Jong did not budge. Only when Shin Chosen came in did he call, "Boss," but maintained his concentration on the back of the man. Seeing the boss there lying completely still, she called out again, but he just answered with a general, "Be careful." Shino Zan had no idea what was going on, thinking that he would be talking about Hama. She told him that she was always careful, so there was nothing to worry about. But Hong Jin Jo put her in her place. It has nothing to do with being careful with them, but that man over there. Dae Sung was on the phone. Chenho was apologizing lavishly for not coming and assisting him yet. "It was fine since I sent a lot of items to you," he said. Yet that god had the audacity to tell him that in case he declined to accept it, that stack of items would end up being dust. "Pals, hey!" The loudspeaker announcement had said the competition would resume in 30 minutes. All participants were invited to wear uniforms and go to examination hall No. Dae Sung stood in front of an automatic equipment dispenser, unsure how to operate it. When he saw the instructions, he stared at it. The first was to scan fingerprints, then take the box underneath the door, and thereafter open the box to inspect the gear within. Dae Sung processed the procedures very meticulously. Just finished scanning his fingerprints when suddenly, a box came tumbling down with a loud thud. He glanced down warily, somewhat disheartened, pointing as whatever was inside it seemed to be papers. At that time, the individuals who had undergone the process were already in examination hall No. 3, eagerly speculating regarding the competition. Even the overnight bald man was permitted to participate on the merit of his letter of complaint and his threatening telephone calls. He still insisted the old measuring device didn't assess his abilities and talents properly. Today, he was extremely angry because a shrewd fellow had the temerity to touch his shaved head without asking. "If I meet him again, I will certainly tell him who's boss." But his anger was interrupted when a hand came over his head suddenly. Enraged, he turned to curse the person fully, but he saw at once a man with a killer's aura standing menacingly. To step away from him, the bald head was stunned at once. His mood to compete evaporated, he just wanted to retreat. At the time, Dae Sung, with ID number 104, had also changed and entered the waiting hall. A number of times, waving arms to try out the flexibility of the uniform. Passing by the depressed bald guy who banged his head against the wall, he smiled. The competition was now officially starting. After waiting in hall No. 3, the candidates moved on to another stadium room. Shino's assigned number was 16, Jinshin was 14, and Dae Sung's was 104. Others present as well were chatting enthusiastically about the test, which was about to be held. At that time, the light in the room began to brighten suddenly, releasing a blinding flash. 3 glowing round lights appeared above the heads of members, causing everyone to wonder what was happening. Abruptly, one or two tapping noises from microphone check reverberated above. Someone in glasses and a black jacket emerged and introduced himself as the supervisor. These 3 circles are indicative of the 3 test floors. Each floor will have a different situation and a predetermined test to complete. Upon this declaration, the buzz below initiated because this was the first time they conducted a test like this. Suddenly, one hand was raised. Participant number 51 asked when they would be given weapons. The supervisor dismissed quickly, stating that during this test, the participants would not receive weapons except for the safety gear just issued to them. They could not take anything else inside. This made the participants very angry. No weapons meant they had to fight with their bare hands alone. Suddenly, someone's voice rang out. "Nice to meet you all. I am iBot, who will lead you further in this competition." A drop of water with legs turned up, greeting the test with the adaptation theme. For this round, the players needed to show their ability to adapt in any manner. The true value of a hunter is not weapons, but the primal radiance running in their bodies. That is, it is based on their own power. By fully unleashing all they have, adapting and struggling, they can easily reach the next level. Meanwhile, the contestants were confused by the rule. The teleportation portal began to open. A turbulent, spinning black hole took shape just behind them. Unaware of that, the supervisor yelled, informing them, "Last route, go first, and then the others," without forgetting to wish them the best of luck. In the first level, the rainforest was very hot, and the contestants were perspiring and half breathless. The moment they arrived, just breathing was tough. How could they fight like that? Another man even shouted that he was about to become dried fish. A huge screen projected all the previous photographs in the control room. Most people were watching the contestants' every move. Some members of the organizing committee were displeased with this year's contestants' quality, but others thought the exam was too challenging. Maybe everyone would have been failing, one muttered. But this senior did not think so. He saw Shino on the screen, green and unaffected much by the heat. She kept her head empty to save energy consumption, while others fought against the heat. With a satisfied grin, Hong Jin-jang was more than pleased with her performance. Along with Shino, on screen was Jinshin, scoring good grades because he was contentedly carefree due to the medicine he had ingested. He hardly had to put any effort to stay away from the heat. Keeping an eye over the scene, the judges thought, "This time, the Red Devil has practiced thoroughly." He was thrilled at the possibility of the old man from the aisle being extremely afraid now. Looking ahead, seeing him wince with his eyes, Laku was somewhat taken aback. How could he be so shaken by such little things? Full of concern, Hong Jin-jong glared directly at the screen. Dae Sung kept calm as if nothing was occurring, making everyone highly curious about who this mastermind was. Laku coldly gazed up at the screen but immediately became taken aback. How could he be so composed? The people in the control room thought that he was employing a shield by concealing it. Dae Sung had worn the blood vial guard as protection, but to his surprise, it began working immediately. Dae Sung had 46 hours, 52 minutes, and 48 seconds to go untouched by any external forces. As per the rules, employing these items would surely result in disqualification, but none of them had any idea what he had utilized. The rest of the contestants were still panting. The test had not even commenced, and they could not tolerate this heat. All of a sudden, outside on the sleeve of each person, the sight of a pink bracelet appeared. The iBot declared the first level's requirement, slay 20 swamp fairies. Dae Sung was totally sure confronting this challenge. Immediately after receiving the order, he proceeded ahead in a straight manner. Sensing this, the rest of the candidates followed him hastily, each so determined to conquer this task. Somewhere deep inside the forest, there was the trembling arm and the panting of someone echoing. Stumbling, he proceeded ahead after tripping over a stone, cursing all along. But then suddenly, a gush of groundwater burst up exactly when he was about to die of thirst. He stumbled upon this, leaving him elated. he proceeded towards it at once, extending his hand to touch the cold water. But something was off. The water began to take a sticky shape, adhering tightly to his dirty hands, scaring him out of his mind. Suddenly, his body was being pulled up into the air. It turned out the water was part of a giant worm's trap, an animal that spends most of its time in swamps, utilizing sticky liquid to trap prey. It did not take long, it swallowed the fellow, pushing the organizers to resort to emergency cover. The head of the worm later inflated and burst, having a ball wrapped by a contestant. When it dropped on the ground, it still had that status to shield the contestant until the medical team came. Another corner of the forest, Dae Sung just bumped against a tree trunk and escaped as if searching for something. There was nothing he needed here, so he immediately changed direction. By now, 3 members of the medical team had also come to the location of the sticky worm to rescue the guy. Suddenly, an alert sound of a Scarface member's text message beeped. When he opened it, there was one message: monitoring number 104. Dae Sung has become thinner, sinisterly preparing to contemplate some sinister plots. A long-haired demon with a sword was leisurely walking in the woods, but then unexpectedly, it sensed some source of energy directly behind it. A voice full of sarcasm and disgust rang out. "You've been caught out. I was going to sneak up behind you and stab you with this. It would have been really tempting." The demon, annoyed, looked around with red eyes, seeing Dae Sung holding high in his hand a big rock, glaring at it provocatively. It roared with rage and then ran towards his rugged figure. He at once hurled the rock high, taking an attacking position. The rock hit just aside from the demon's face, within fist's reach. He punched it with all his might, breaking the rock. The fractured pieces slammed into the demon flat on its body as a result of his brute strength. Then came the sound barrier, shattering. The whole forest trembled. A cap wearer lurked secretly behind a tree trunk, watching this latest fight. This was the medical staff member tasked with monitoring Dae Sung, who had finally caught up with him. Following through the woods, angry, he reprimanded the others for their ineptitude, berating them for pitting him against fighting a stranger without even a portrait or any information. Considering the killed demon on the ground and Dae Sung, who was quietly counting the demons he had knocked out, he was absolutely shocked. This man was this strong, not weaker than rookies of elite clans or huge factions. Finding it too time-consuming to pursue them individually, Dae Sung concentrated his strength. He did not intend to use mana at this time, but to save time, he had to use the technique of calling a shadow spirit. As he kept his hand in his palm, black liquid flowed down. At the same time, countless claws appeared from nowhere, attaching themselves to his body. "Des, in command, go find them," and those shadows scattered at once. The sun was still brutal, shining brightly, and the forest was eerily silent without any movement. In some cave, several demons suddenly heard a strange sound from afar. They stood up vigilantly, looking in that direction. One demon sensed something alluring and stepped forward. However, another demon instantly halted it, counseling patience for a delicious prey. At that moment, rocks dropped from above on the demons' heads, causing them to look up in confusion. Eerily, more rocks dropped like rain, making them progressively more panicked. One demon suddenly felt something amiss and turned around. There was now a hole in the cave, with the face of a stranger holding a branch. Eager but frustrated, Dae Sung complimented the demons. "Dumb, but smart in knowing to dig underground to hide. No wonder I never saw any of you up top." He had to rub his eyes so he wouldn't sleep. His glare made the demons' eyes glow like car headlights. "Ah, dinner served, dinner served." They said something like bolo bow to one another. While he was concentrating on counting the demons in the cave, some 20, enough to pass the first level, he didn't know why they were creating such a commotion. The flame on his sword, pretending to be a branch, told him that they had considered him a banquet. Hearing this, he erupted into laughter. "These demons are so friendly, aren't they?" But within a moment, he was indignant and commanded the Fire King, "Burn all those fools." At another turn of fate in the woods, 2 legs were running like flying. That was Shin Chosen, using a technique to widen her aura and find prey. Something like a burning web encircled her, expanding wider. With this method, Shin Chosen could see strange movements nearby. Just now, she had sensed a roaming demon. She jumped in another direction, then sprinted toward a wide tree. She kicked the trunk so hard the demon hiding on it fell down immediately. From afar, Shin Chosen observed it wriggling after its fall. At this speed, it'll take only another hour to finish this floor's work, she thought. The demon attempted to stand and was about to run, but Shin Chosen wasn't friendly. She took deep breaths, readying for the next attack, then charged like an arrow aiming to kill the 4th demon that morning. Just about to strike, someone zipped past so fast and decapitated the demon instead. To Shin Chosen's surprise, she turned her head and saw a face she knew, blonde hair. She had seen her somewhere before. The corpse of the dead demon fell before them, and now she knew who that person was, the crazy Jinshin of the Crimson Devil Gang. Jinshin stroked his hair haughtily. That was the 5th one, he bragged, making Shin Chosen extremely angry. Stealing from others is your specialty, Crimson Devils, she taunted back. Jinshin smirked. It's a contest. What do you have to do with it? Looking at her, he added, You're not that foolish, even more than a demon, little sister. Shin Chosen sighed deeply. She didn't try to argue with such a bandit who not only stole but also boasted. Then she smiled contemptuously. Since when did sucking human blood become your clan's tradition? Just wait and see, Jinshin shot back, grinning wickedly. Since when did your clan make idiots a tradition? A staring war erupted between the two, not flames of love, but hatred. Exhausted by the exchange, Jinshin merely wished to slash Shin Chosen's throat, but doing so would raise suspicion of poisoning. Clenching his teeth, he forced himself to endure. Survive until the 2nd floor, then deal with her. Noticing Jinshin standing frozen, Shin Chosen sighed in disbelief and turned aside, but not without flipping him off. Go play by yourself, you fool. Seeing this, Jinshin's killing intent surged violently. Infuriated, he launched himself at Shin Chosen with immeasurable rage. Suddenly, a huge blast erupted on the other side of the woods, making both halt in their tracks. Missed attack chance, Jinshin swore in anger. Damn it, what is this? Shin Chosen looked worriedly in the direction of the sound. Both of them at the same time glanced at the noise, observing a huge fire break out and engulf the woods. A few minutes ago, Dae Sung carelessly grasped a branch with a blazing flame at the end. Unlike other flames, this one insisted it prompted him to give it commands in haste. His eyes brimmed with a self-righteous smile as he courageously gave the flame the command, burn them all. This elegant talent was Flame Sword, or, better put, Fire Prison. The system even taught him that he could enhance its power. The fire burned even more fiercely, suggesting that the fire prison worked. He rose with the flaming sword, or, more accurately, the fire peak sword, to experience its aura. Within a snap, all the power mixed with anger erupted into fire, burning all the monsters within the cave. A tremendous force, over and over again, scorched the whole forest. The ground shook, and monsters' bodies were flung into the air, incinerated to dust. The managers of this test witnessed this on screen, their eyes wide in shock, mouths agape. The system automatically displayed that Candidate 104 had fulfilled the requirement to finish the 1st floor and could move on to Gate 2. The staff were still in a state of shock, asking questions repeatedly. The test had only just begun, and Dae Sung had already finished it impeccably, at that. Immediately, HR departments of other firms and hunter guilds angrily phoned in, all demanding Candidate 104 for their teams. They hastened to request Dae Sung's files be checked. The head of the Soul Guild, Hong Jin Jong, remained calm, rubbing his chin in contemplation. After their corridor meeting, he was certain Dae Sung would perform well, but not to this degree. Meanwhile, the head of the H gang, Lisa Kwu, looked atrociously cunning, as if plotting something. This guy seemed troubled watching candidate 104 excel. He turned away, unable to believe the reality. I'll make the H-Gang's candidate wallop Dae Sung by every means possible, even if it means getting dirty. On screen, the humongous explosion showed no signs of reduction. This phenomenal power intimidated the awakening staff members among them. A girl with glasses and short hair, the one who had tested Dae Sung using the crystal ball. She looked amazed, shaking the staff member next to her who paled. I told you from the start that guy was awesome, but no one listened. The staff member, now green-faced from being pushed around, silently pleaded with her to stop. At this point, another staff member focusing intently on the screen suddenly screamed, "Is that Jin Sang?" The other two fell silent, looking up toward the screen shocked to see Jin Sang peeking through the leaves. He had been watching Dae Sung for a while, taking advantage of his Fire Peak sword slaying monsters before entering Gate 2. Sneaking stealthily, carrying a spear, Jin Sang made his way around, hunting remaining monsters. He smiled with a happy glint, counting 11. His plan after candidate 104 was pure genius. On the other side of the screen, colleagues turned green, speechless. Some blamed it on cheating, but others justified it. This test requires adaptation, it doesn't count as cheating. The green-faced colleague protested, "Why is Jin Sang even allowed? He's weak, not even awakened." The female colleague glared at him. "All you do is flatter Dae Sung. Why are you even discussing Jin Sang?" The man standing in front of them, constantly praising candidate 104 despite risking a warning, retorted, "Dae Sung broke the measuring equipment. There are rumors Jin Sang aimed to nullify the results since the machine was broken. He even filed dozens of complaints. Maybe that's why he got special privileges." Not only did she doubt him, but she also developed a throbbing headache. "Snap out of it. Our bosses aren't exactly responsible." Before he could finish, a tall figure emerged behind them. A chilly voice spoke, "I sincerely apologize for being late." The staff members, caught gossiping about their boss, froze in terror, hurriedly bowing and apologizing lest they be dismissed this month. "I let him join this time," the boss said openly. "Did anything amusing happen lately?" Everyone thought they were dreaming. Rubbing his temples, the boss made a helpless face. 3 nights ago, I received a report Jin Sang was caught attempting to enter the branch gate with bombs wrapped around his body. Does he intend to commit suicide? He knows he's not awakened." The branch manager shook his head. "No. Years ago, monsters poured from a dimensional gate and slaughtered Jin Sang's whole family. He seeks revenge." At this, everyone fell silent. While it was calm, an unusual phenomenon occurred. Infinite monsters brutally attacked innocent individuals. Understandably, everyone felt anger and hatred not just toward Jin Sang. If they were in his position, they'd likely do the same. A cowardly employee complained, "Sympathizing with people in unfavorable situations isn't useful. Sooner or later, the system will be dismantled anyway." Journalists mumbled that he had no heart. He wept without tears, as critics claimed. Fortunately, the branch manager comforted him. "You're right," his colleague whispered, "but allowing ordinary people into the competition was a huge risk. His salary would be docked for 3 months. Yet, in hardship, there was fortune." He saw the shining Jin Sang then, on screen. Han's sloppy face appeared. But in a blink, the signal and screen were interrupted by interference. Employees called the IT department to fix the system, but in vain. Someone had tampered with the monitoring. Meanwhile, in another corner where 2 guards stood, a remote control was hurled at one of the lackeys Lisa's bribed man. Candidate 104 Dae Sung should have been disqualified from level 2 or 3, shouldn't he? The guy turned, explaining coldly, "Only if he crossed Jinnen." Then, lowly, he added, "I just wanted to test his abilities." Looking at the task device in his hand, he battled internally. Is this just a minor test? The job given was to shoot a mutant solution near the level 2 gate, ensuring Dae Sung wouldn't pass easily. Lisa had paid someone to do it. On the monitor, an armored figure face hidden under a cap held a gun. A bit unlucky for Dae Sung's skill, but he shouldn't have tampered with the Red Devil's game. Bang! A loud gunshot rang out. The bullet, carrying the mutant solution, struck the back of a creature. A thunderous roar terrorized the whole forest. Birds took flight in panic. Dae Sung's expression changed at the sound. Seeing the flock scatter, he thought, "It's coming from gate 2. If I go there, it's just what Lisa wants." A voice sneered, "Go ahead, kid. We'll be mighty happy." The bullet flew out of the gun with incredible force and struck directly into the brown monster's back. It emitted a pained roar, causing birds to run away in terror. Flying in terror, the ampules in its blood made it glow green, and its limbs wrenched earth and rocks, hurtling them into the air, sticking onto its body, making a big shape. Its strength appeared doubled. This monster was known as a marsh gum, and its unusualness was puffing out smoke. The golem opened its big mouth with all the energy, storing it in its mouth. The gim hid behind the tree, watching everything, ready to rush off at once to report back. He was sure he would get a huge reward, just as he had undertaken the task. The device fell over, emitting some wheezing noises. Before he could realize what was happening, the device had simply exploded apart, filling the room with thick smoke. "Damn it," he coughed, crying out. "Isn't this smoke a paralyzing agent? L wants to kill us." He had inhaled a massive amount of smoke, so he instantly fell over onto the grass in the woods, coughing and choking, frantically trying to suck in some fresh air to clear his body out of the way. Although the gim attempted to slide further down onto the ground, sadly, the golem had gotten hold of the SC of its victim. Its mouth continued to blow out smoke. He spun rapidly to glance at the beast. Their gaze locked, as if telling the other, "It's over now." Simultaneously, Dae Sung proceeded to the next gate but lost his way. He continued going round and round. The coordinate device in his palm also ceased working abruptly, too coincidentally and too unexpectedly. He passed where the gim had been lying. The dude had passed away in a stiff position, covered in threads all over his body. He was shocked, surmising that something recently must have occurred here, with some secret motives being involved. The branch organization definitely didn't have anything to do with this. Dae Sung, who had spent years in hell, had a sharp intuition and sensed something was restraining him because he suspected the golem was concealed in the smoke, looking at him with its burning eyes. Right away, giant lotus-shaped stones kept approaching him as an unwelcoming gesture. Dae Sung rushed quickly, trying to deflect the stones with his burning sword, but in vain. A stone suddenly changed, then exploded, producing a sky-rumbling noise and a slide that pushed him a little back, forcing him to put his face in his hands to protect himself from the dust. At this point of gravity, he could stay calm to analyze the situation. They could take fire, but it seemed they were more likely to absorb mana. Dae Sung couldn't utilize his previous tactics on the monster, since it was still recovering and didn't seem like it would hold still for a blow, but instead attack frontally. The gem kept generating thick smoke with its rough hands in a pile of humongous rocks and hurling them directly at Dae Sung. Incapable of using fire anymore, he used ice as a shield, shoving away the rocks, ducking his head, defending himself from the assault, and dashing towards the golem rapidly. He courageously ran through the endless rain of falling rocks, vowing to kill it so that it would not continue to use stones to kill him. The stack of rocks missed the target and followed the order of the golem, turning around towards Dae Sung, who was running but could not maintain the pace, falling on the ground with a foot. The angry monster breathed out of breath, as if to be punched by Ding, even though he didn't have legs to run. He rushed eagerly at him. The golem was in control. Its enormous body was more than 4 meters away from Dae Sung. Suddenly, he felt a stack of rocks pressing his nose. His hand hadn't yet touched the gem's chest, but his entire body was blown off, knocking a line of trees, making a long queue in another area of a forest. Jinin had done the work of Gate 1. Now he was occupied destroying the innards of the dead monster, intending to use it as an interim source of food. Then the system took over his hunger. Contestant number 14, Jinin, had done the requirements to finish the first level, giving coordinates to the second level. He got up grumpily, rubbed his wrists, grumbling for wasting so much time on this demon monster, not even a chance to intake something, and he had to leave. Near to turn around, his chilly eyes looked aside, seeing a white box suspended in mid-air. He immediately grasped the box and opened it to see what was inside: a vial of ampules, a special compass, and a letter drawn up by the organizers. They utilized the signal jamming on the screen, cheating no one ever found out. He read the subject of the letter and discovered that Dae Sung was even on a first level. He used fire to burn the evidence, chuckling cleverly. "Thank you, little brother. I'll take the lead position at Dae Sung." The location where the gem reappeared in its former state, floating in thick smoke. Dae Sung was beneath a collapsed tree, unconscious. At once, he flailed his hands repeatedly, not to signal the golem that it should desist from attacking him, but as a tribute to the golem for being much, much stronger than before. After using that solution, his strength had greatly augmented, but he would not kill him easily. Dae Sung altered his mode of combat, looking up at the golem, then goading him. He roared loudly, summoning the shadows to take form and feeding them with the monster's broken stones, clearing for him. Dae Sung stood firm, ready to use his sword of fire and battle again. Rocks from the golem attacked him, but were stopped by the hands of the shadows below, unwilling to allow them to get one step closer to Dae Sung. With the flick of his arm, Dae Sung used his sword of fire to turn all the attack to ashes, incinerating them like slices of beef, a feast for the shadows to dine on. "Heh, wait for me, beast. Now I shall return, greater than ever." Dae Sung stood upright in front of the tree trunk while the shadow ran to bring the flaming stones to devour. Eating, they went fast like an oncoming mud heap, creating a loud commotion. At the same time, the golem shouted in rage, its eyes ablaze with red hatred because the stones did not respond. It charged with its movement, ready to search Dae Sung to eliminate him, without knowing that beside it were the shadows trailing its every move. Just when it was about to attack the gum, a shadow wailed, causing it to lower its eyes to see thousands of hands of the shadows spreading, growing bigger, being buffed with strength by devouring energy from the stones. Just entering the game, Dae Sung smirked, snatching the stone away. In the control room, the signals were being fine-tuned. The screen was filled with colored static, looking like an old TV set. After a couple of seconds, the signal gradually stabilized. This screen static cleared to display the original live feed. The judges immediately requested close monitoring of every step taken by contestant 104, calling for closer zooming for a clear view. The main screen was now filled with thick smoke, giving the impression that there was still some technical problem. Where did the smoke originate from in the tropical forest background? On closer look, they noticed the golem with an open mouth, howling in surprise. Which animal was that? Why had it appeared suddenly during the exam? Was it a task from the judges? "Is this permissible, boss? It seems like a mutant monkey," someone questioned nervously. Whether to respond, he paused and muttered to the branch manager, "Should we intervene? Call emergency defense units to be on standby," he said, worried about Dae Sung's safety. This animal must not be provoked. But the branch manager remained quiet, ignoring the employees trying to speak. As the employee was going to insist, he all of a sudden got a fist mark on his face. "What is wrong, sir? Has he truly overcome it?" the bespectacled girl inquired, her voice tense. The employee strode, muttering in the ear of the boss that they had identified signs from number 104 and were sending someone to rescue him. At the same time, they proposed calling off Dae Sung's exam. But the branch manager ruthlessly spoke a sentence lacking any vagueness. Before he could finish, the girl with glasses blurted out, "Has he actually beaten it?" Everyone looked over at the screen at one time. The shadows had expanded bigger than the size of the golem itself. They opened their eyes and hurled fiery rocks at it, causing the creature to scream in agony. Hundreds of burning stones pummeled down, encasing the golem in flames. This was a strategy like utilizing a monster's own ability against it to cause it to crumble in agony. A pillar of smoke ascended within the forest, clearly demonstrated on the screen, leaving everyone in the control room speechless. They all looked at the screen with no means of knowing his marks. This fellow is another level. We thought it was a technical failure, but Dae Sung can be an amazing animal beyond our expectations. On the screen, his contented smile happened contrary to all predictions with his triumph over the golem. The glasses-wearing woman sweated, keeping silent for seconds, not willing to believe the truth before her. He was unexpectedly great, the idol she had cheered with all might. The lady staff beside her snickered, whispering, "What's there to praise? These have nothing to do with the exam marks." She couldn't think. She did not know the context. She opened her eyes and said, "Open your eyes wide and look. Jain will reach the second gate before one side worships Dae Sung, while the other looks at Jinshin." They looked at one another like bullets, not ready to give way. The situation was slightly different from what was expected, but the black-clothed staff member still whispered to the branch manager if they should cancel the plan to send somebody to guard Dae Sung. The cold-faced manager replied there was no need, ordering them to send somebody to report the situation there. The sky started to change with cold gusts of wind. Jinan changed direction with a compass and was soon racing to be the first to find the second gate. On the ground, strange, inexplicable sounds echoed. Smoke in the woods beyond began lifting, making Jain halt and look around. Jain thought that if the smoke faded, then the battle was over. But what did it matter to his rush to the first gate, which was priority number 1? Having finished the path, he destroyed the compass so it could not be used as evidence of cheating. A wicked grin creased his lips. Jinan was quite sure he had won. This game was a piece of cake. On the other side of the forest, the golem had been destroyed, its huge stones stacked one upon another. No smoke was left, and new blood ran down the golem's body. Dae Sung employed his own blood to set a dark spell. Upon whispering into the void, a beam of light appeared as he summoned the Shiryo army. Coldly, dark magic instantly veiled the gum's corpse. As the white smoke vanished, black ominous smoke emerged, leaving the audience bewildered and wondering what he was doing. All of a sudden, the golem reappeared on screen in a new form, totally covered up by the black magic of the abyss. The supervisor's eyes were bulging with surprise, saying, "What is this?" The golem roared, showing great force, but Dae Sung gestured for it to be quiet, calling it closer to him. Time was short. Impatient to celebrate its return, it saw Dae Sung too angry, and the smile vanished from its eyes. It knelt at Dae Sung's feet, obedient like a serving dog. The magic of the summoned Shiryo army had effortlessly turned it into his slave. Stamping his foot on the golem, he ordered it to run. It went on to move with speed, utilizing its non-lines, effortlessly blown away by the wind. Just as Jinshin smiled proudly in front of the second gate, thinking that he was so gifted that he had won first rank effortlessly, Dae Sung proclaimed, "I am number 1. Suddenly, there came this powerful gust of wind, like some foreboding. Something had just gone past at light speed. Jinshin remained there, mouthing the gate, utterly perplexed by the sight of the supernatural that had just taken place. At the stadium, the applause and whispers from the control room reverberated outside. At precisely the moment, Siu sauntered by nonchalantly with his friends, assuming the praises were for Jinan. He stood resolutely, sure that all was well. The H-action had achieved the number 1 position. The control room doorway opened to display Jinan's dumbfounded face before Lisak W's eyes. A swift glance and Laku clarified things instantaneously. He growled in anger, cursing himself quietly. Damn it, the fool botched the job once more. A moment previously, Dae Sung, who was holding the flame peak sword, led the gum, which was oozing magical energy. Gazing at the trees ahead of him, he speculated there may be a possibility cut there. He forthwith instructed the gum, the stone-headed monster, to pave the way. He would take care of it. After issuing the order, he called the Flame King, with fire from the trees consuming the whole forest in flames. But the gem did not budge, enraging Dae Sung, who yelled at it furiously. It only went forward after it was reprimanded by him so that he could sit on it. As they sprinted through the blazing fire, wherever the Flame King's power blazed, consuming everything on their path, the staff watching the scary flames on screen assumed contestant 104 was employing some sort of magical skill. Some had never encountered such a strange technique before. Others were sure that he was using light manipulation, a skill with which beams of light were controlled. Born to hunters, no one believed that he had lived for 80 years in the underworld. For in this age, anything could occur. The background effects were incredibly shocking, but Jinan had already gained, so they just ridiculed Dae Sung a bit, knowing that it would not be useful to them in any way. Each one defended their idol. Suddenly, a big rumble was heard, and both girls kept silent, looking in that direction. The spectators were eager to find out who had been making all the racket. Laku could no longer keep his rage in and let it out right in their faces by slamming his fist against the control panel. A security officer hurriedly came over, calling out that he should not be acting this way here, but his words only made Laku angrier, his eyes flashing with a burning red light. Noticing this, one of his people stepped in the way of the security officer, warning him off calmly it was for everyone's good. But Lisu was able to keep his rage suppressed. A forced smile returned to his face as he acted offhand. I was just enjoying this great performance. The ISO faction chief sat in a corner, smirking to himself, thinking that Lisu, the clever guy, probably did not expect being outwitted by him like this, right? He assumed that Shino-Z would be coming any moment now to the testing grounds. Jinan was finally caught up on with anger and cursing for real. Shit, damn it! From shock to shock, suddenly, behind him, someone screamed, running frantically out of fear. He turned to look and see Shin Chosen chasing him in anger. He did not want anyone to get ahead of him, so he began running next to her. At this point, at Gate 2, Dae Sung and the stone-headed monster waited under the snowcat floor of the mountain. 1 was hot. Floor 2 was cold. He vilified the lack of imagination in the design of the test, but the stone had been successful, so he looked over and complimented it out of the blue. A vortex whizzed by, leaving a green flash. The coordinates device in his hand sprang to life suddenly. The adorable droplet came back with a radiant smile, throwing up both hands to shout, "Congratulations! Congratulations to contestant 104, first to the second floor." Dae Sung looked about and asked, "If the rest haven't come yet, so would I begin?" The little droplet immediately gave instructions. All players would begin at various gates, and the task on the second floor was to take over the snowcat peak. After wishing Dae Sung luck, it vanished. Standing there, staring at the towering and featureless snow peak, he estimated that the height must be more than 5 kilometers. There were surveillance units everywhere on the snow peak from above, so cheating would easily be detected. Starting to climb the rocks as stepping stones, he grumbled to himself, scowling. He turned angrily to glance at the observation plane, wondering, if this thing did not exist, I would have used magic to finish this already. Hearing a sound below, he glanced down and spotted someone had just apparated. It was said that even level C or the individuals who were previously awakened had to earn their living by sweat labor. Jinan was at the bottom of the mountain, cursing right away with all manner of words. Why would this game make them begin from other places? If they continued disturbing me like this, I would go crazy. If I can't kill that damn Dae Sung, Jinan's anger wouldn't cease. Suddenly, he heard heavy footsteps at his back. He immediately turned around to look and spotted a figure approaching. Jinan was angered and went on cursing. Why this thing? It was Jin's D.O., taking the help of cunningness to find a path through the first floor. The snowstorm passed by, imparting freezing cold, forcing Jinan to cling to his body tightly. His nose was dripping, still his limbs froze and could not move. The feeling here for another 30 seconds. Jin S's hair would all drop off, leaving him bald. While furious, Jinin chanced to see the surveillance aircraft. He smiled in delight, believing that he had to attend to this pest first. It seemed like this guy was with him at this time of testing with the purpose of killing others. In this instance, the bald man still did not know anything. He attempted to slap his face so that he would wake up, remembering his dead loved ones. He realized that he must continue struggling. Jins tensed his muscles and screamed, not feeling even the slightest coldness. But the instant he finished uttering his words, a lump of snow suddenly fell from above, making him lose balance and getting him carried away by the snow. He cried for help, but no one helped him, not even the person who swore. The snow avalanche, no one else but the killer, Jinshin. Pests like that guy should not be around, so Jinin sent him a one-way trip back to hell. In the control room, the screen at the same time displayed multiple off signs with no images anymore. The ID team, in a frenzy, proclaimed that the live broadcast from the surveillance aircraft was no longer working. The whole video feed was interrupted. Lisu casually put his hands in his pockets as if he didn't know anything. With a sidelong look, he suspected that it all started. He just hoped that that brat Jinin would not screw things up. The snow tower peak was still holding its breath for the next individual to arrive. Contestants number 64 and 65, who had just turned up, were shivering with cold. Number 65 hopefully said, "There would be no problem all along. We were the strongest alliance." No sooner than he said so, Jinin came out of nowhere, making him tumble face first, sending contestant 64 into panic, screaming his head off at the top of his lungs. Jinin's pointed fingers circled his head. His body was like King Kong in terms of strength. He grinned wickedly. The Demon Lord's imp pools really worked. With just a very small injection, my power has been amplified 100 times. Jinin, in his ego, proclaimed that he would kill whoever was brave enough to get in his way. Really, those poor people were unfortunate. Being slow meant they arrived late and were already blocked and attacked. On the other side, Chosang didn't know all this. He went on, using his stick to thrust deep into the snow, making a solid base. Watching the wobbly readings of the measuring equipment and the disorientation of several drones closing in on her, she grew suspicious. At Daesung's location, the drones closing in on him were also badly damaged. However, this proved to be Daesung's pleasure, as he could now easily make use of his power to climb. He released the rocks he had his hands on, letting himself drop freely. Daesung smiled and shouted, "Valor Dragonite armor open sesame." At last, he no longer had to rely on his muscles to climb. Smiling happily, he plummeted quickly faster and faster. A whirling light suddenly appeared, covering Daesung. Chosang suddenly heard a sudden noise somewhere. Why did this enormous ore suddenly appear here? Something swept past her. A man with dark wings was flying upright to the snow peak. It shocked her. Could contestant 104 fly using Zora? But Daesung didn't care about the things around him. He didn't care who witnessed him triumphing over his ordeal to be the victor. Wings soaring upward at light speed. In the meantime, Jinin, descending on the ground, was a punching bag being hit continuously. Contestant 64 lost all his teeth due to the continual hits, while Jinin sat on the poor fellow. He was surprised by something unusual and turned to see a humongous pair of wings unfurling, coming toward the mountain peak. Thinking that everyone must be using enhancers like him, he furiously suspected that contestant 104 used some of the Harpy's ampoules. Spotting someone on the verge of defeating him, Jinin, in a hurry, ran back toward the snow peak, bellowing angrily, "Wait for me, 104. In the control room, a thunderous voice echoed, ordering a stop to the test immediately. The person who bellowed was Soul Branch's head. He demanded, questioning the branch manager, "Shouldn't participant safety come first above all else? The gears are completely fried now. Nobody's got any clue about their safety." But the branch heads just said, "Cool your jets, mate. The suits upstairs are dealing with it. Lusako burst out laughing, attempting to play games. What? You future hunters can't risk it for the biscuit? I mean, if y'all can't do this, how you ever gonna be bona fide hunters? He gave a condescending glance. Hong Jinjong, the head of the Hunter Association, the man who chose the elite, got hit where it hurts. Hey, you playing some funny business here? Hong Jinjong asked point blank. But Lisa, who was as shameless as they come, smiled like a cat and gave back. If you're weak sauce, you ain't got no business being a real hunter, buddy. Or are you too soft to handle it? Everybody from the association just clammed up. Nobody interjected in this ego clash. The whole leader was pretty angry, calling Lisa a low-down dirty snake. But he didn't care. His blood-red eyes gleamed slyly as he said, "Time to retire, old man." Back to the test, Dae Sung had flown up to the mountaintop due to his aura, and now there was a gate for the 3rd level right before him. Should I leave for the day? He wondered. Then he twisted his arm up and soared over to the gate. Neither Chosen nor Jinan had made it. They were both huffing and puffing, trying to climb up that mountain as quick as they could, the blizzard still raging. Down at the base of the mountain, there suddenly appeared a hand sticking out of the snow. Then out came a pair of legs. It was Jin, saying, "The end is restrictable. Bald guys really do live longer, eh?" He landed flat on the ground, staring up at the sky and gasping. Sobbing like a baby, he thought he'd be meeting his maker again. Just a plain Joe, not as hardy as the others, but he was still alive after that avalanche. Jin jumped up and screamed, "I ain't dead, so I win." But then he paled because it was freezing cold. Up there, Dae Sung had done it. He was sliding along into the 3rd gate. A beautiful droplet appeared, spilling the rules. Watch your step and don't let monsters by. Instead, kick their butts to gain points. 1,000 will take you past. Dae Sung took some breaths as he entered the world of the night's dominance, reserved in getting to know the darkness. Suddenly, he heard someone behind him shouting his name. Turning, he saw Jinan. Jinan came up to him and asked, "Have you ever seen the flying guy before?" pointing toward Dae Sung's location. Suspicion filled his gaze. What had gone on with this bloke? Jinan's snickering laugh engulfed her. Quick movements, but Chosen didn't utter anything, giving it the status of background noise. Turning, she told him, "Don't say another word." She was intent on her own way through the monsters. Hearing this, Jinan's rage grew intense. Meanwhile, Chosen remembered the words of the leader, Hong Jinjong. "Be cautious about that guy, 104. She raised her eyebrows, thinking, on the 1st and 2nd floor, 104 was swift, but the 3rd floor can be a different case. A beep-beep from the wristband cut off her thoughts. A warning in the air. Suddenly, a sharp beam of light flashed past and caused her blood to squirt. She looked around to see Jinan smiling. He had ambushed her. Gritting her teeth, Chosen stifled the pain and cursed him for his ambush. Dae Sung had made it to the 3rd floor and was engaged in carrying out his mission. Dae Sung used a special fire grenade maneuver, and even though the firepower was dainty, it was like a missile when it fired. Fireballs circled in front of him at all times, shooting off burning rays that reduced the demon-headed creatures in front to ashes. "Dispatch them swiftly," Dae Sung instructed the Fire King. It complied right away, unleashing all its firepower in missile form at the creatures, wrapping them in flames. Dozens of monsters died, lying scattered from the earlier attack. But Dae Sung wasn't content. He reprimanded the Fire King for taking too long to destroy those minions. Then he looked over at the system score, still 530 points. No change. "I still need 470 more to clear this level," he thought, gripping the flame sword hilt to light his way. He resolved to send anyone he saw on his path straight back to the monitoring room. On the other side, the branch manager received a phone call. The report: the system observation equipment still couldn't be repaired. Lisa secretly loved this. Jinan's ampoule injection had been the right move. He glanced over at Hong Jinjong, almost pitying him. Even if she chooses to endure, she'll go half insane. On the third floor, Chosang's blood continued to ooze onto the ground. She clenched her teeth hard, secretly using some means to stop the bleeding. Then, in fury, she held Jinan accountable for stabbing her secretly, a coward's move. With a crafty smile, Jinan taunted, "This plague learned from Hong Jin Jong to play hide and seek because she's too frail." Enraged, Chosang suddenly lunged and kicked Jinan square in the face, forcing him back. But he recovered quickly, his burning anger ignited. "I swore I didn't know why she attacked me," he thought, underestimating her as just another weakling. But it wasn't his protective aura, his eyes had shifted into a menacing red. Chosang escaped, hiding behind a large rock where she sat controlling her breathing and tending to her wounds. She had to stop the bleeding before moving forward. But Jinan appeared out of nowhere, sneaking up with a smiling face. "Found you, you sneaky little one." Chosang's face paled with fear. With no time to react, she hurled her jacket directly into Jinan's eyes, blinding him momentarily. Seizing the advantage, she kicked his lower belly, making him wince in pain and scream. Lightning quick, she yanked her leg back and thrust her knee up, smashing his face again. Jinan staggered backward, clutching his face, legs wobbly. Chosang's wound had partially healed, and an aura of strength radiated from her. She stood like a true warrior, ready to set this madman straight. "I am Shin Chosen, the EO gang's ace," she declared, rolling blood from her mouth. The relentless attack left Jinan helpless, unable to keep pace. He hit the ground, immobile. Gritting her teeth in contempt, Chosang remembered Hong Jin Jong's words, "Humans are becoming more corrupt than monsters." She hadn't believed it then, but now she did. "This girl is too nice. If it were me, I'd murder him with extra kicks." In the monitoring room, Hong Jin Jong fully believed in Chosang's skills. He had trained her to become the strongest warrior. Others still fixated on Dae Sung, who remained bewildered his wristband's system signal wasn't updating. "I've killed so many demons, yet my score hasn't changed," he muttered, scratching his head in frustration. He considered asking directly but chose to push forward, leaving the giant beetles' corpses behind. Chosang walked in vain, meeting no other opponents. A sudden gust of wind blew by. Picking up her hair, she jumped in fright as a body landed at her feet. Jinan grinned with delight. "Found you." Chosang bolted, fear gripping her knees. "Why is he back? I thought I killed him." A pillar-like giant leg suddenly appeared before her. Jinan had taken over, using Chen's own ability against her. He kicked her to the floor, a wicked smile on his face as he sat on her, punching relentlessly. Blood spun from her battered face, tears streaming. Jinan didn't stop. He seized her hair, daring her to fight back, his thrill increasing. "You should beg for mercy. Maybe someone will save you," he mocked, laughing. "Oops, I blew up all the communication devices by mistake." "Sorry about that." Chosang, unbroken, thrust her fingers into his eyes. Blood spurted as Jinan howled in agony, releasing her and falling to the ground. Blinded, he cursed furiously while Chosang mustered her last strength to crawl away. Before Jinan could heal, a sudden voice cut through. "Hey, kiddo." Jinan was yanked back by an abrupt force. Dae Sung stood there, appearing out of nowhere, his expression crossed. "What are you doing here?" Jinshin turned to look at Dae Sung, the person he had most desired to meet. He discarded Chosen on the ground, ceremonially inducing more pain. Fade had finally found him, and she was no longer of any use to him. As he cleaned his mouth and nose, "Hello, you scoundrel. Just when I was looking for you. Thanks for coming to bring your existence to me," he sneered. Completing his sentence, he was gone in an eye blink, reappearing instantly behind him. Enraged, he was going to attack. This surprise attack showdown was Jingeet's skill. He was gone in a flash and walked to Chosen. He put all his might into his attack, but it went soaring past his target. Jin Chin's eyes were wide with shock, indignant at how his attack had missed. At the other end, Dae Sung was crouched beside the ground, Gazing at the injured girl on the ground, Ming, with gentle words, he said, "That must pain him." He watched her intently and understood that she was curing herself. It looked as if she possessed a self-curing power. Then he looked over his shoulders and spotted Jinjin glowering at him angrily, clearly upset about the attack. But Dae Sung didn't care and spoke coldly. "Did you cast all of this?" Hearing that, Jai laughed as if he had hit gold. "Oh, was just me disciplining that little BR for something. She's going to end up just like me soon, so no need to worry." But Des stayed inquisitive and replied coldly, "No, I mean, did you tamper with the scoring device?" Hearing him, Jai sounded shocked, his mouth agape. "I did not know that you were referring to that." "Yeah, that was me. I think I tampered with that a little bit. What's it to you?" Before he could go on, a fist hit his face, slamming him onto the ground. "Damn, I got hit in the face again," he yelled out, his mouth bleeding as he looked like he was in shock. Shocked, Dae Sung cried out, "Fireballs!" and 8 fiery rings instantly appeared, unrelentingly firing fire at Jinjin. Surprised, Jinjin gritted his teeth and hastily held up his hand to ward off the raging flames. Enraged that Dae Sung had the temerity to use this mundane object to fight him, one moment he was eager for battle, and the next he was open wide with fear. For what before him was none other than the detested No. 104 and a legion of demonic minions. They collect deviant perverts, but this one was seeping dark magic. The film studio from hell proudly presents to the screen the movie Journey to the End of the D, featuring supporting characters like a super-sized horseface monster with a gigantic head. "You've really messed up my friend at the examination hall." The short-haired secretary was informing the branch manager that the system on the second floor was already back up, but the third would have to wait for 30 minutes. The manager instructed the security team to go to the second floor in order to lead them to the third floor, that he could sense something was not right. A Miss Lisa sat on the opposite side of the room, drinking tea, believing that they were all applicants for the post of hunter and that they were all panicking. This infuriated Hong Jin Jong so much that he uttered expletives against L, being a venomous snake. Suddenly, the door of the control room opened, and an employee ran in. "Chris, bring a report to the manager that there was someone dead on the second floor and lots injured." Leaving the branch manager, Peo Lu suppressed a smirking smile and looked around, whereas Hong Jin Jang was very disturbed. Of his winning rooster Chosen not knowing what to do. News had already gone on air, and a breaking news update had just surfaced relating to the disturbance of the hunter exams communication for more than an hour. Chanho, who was in the office, saw this news too, and was a concerning fellow concerned about his best friend, so he rushed to the exam place. During this time, at the third test floor, the heavy and laborious breathing of someone went on and on uninterrupted. Oh, it looks like the heavy breathing was of Jinjin, who was rushing to flee after witnessing the legendary image of Dae Sung in his gang. Oh, while he was running, suddenly his legs and body gave their official adieu with a cry of pain, and he fell onto the floor. Gritting his teeth, Jian was shocked and could not believe this reality, except for that he had still one chance left to regenerate. "I've heard even the insects of hell can regenerate when cut. Are you like them?" "Well, saying we're like, is it because we regenerate or is it because we're both insects? Your curses go deep." Now Jinjin was scared, really seeing Dae Sung rushing towards him, unable to flee. He screamed like a horror movie scream. At that moment, in the large surveillance room, the connection was re-established. But instead of joy, Lyso's face reflected patent surprise because on the screen above, Jinjin was on his knees on the ground, pleading to Zim, shivering all over. Jian continued pleading for his life because he had only one more chance at regeneration. But Dae Sung desired, "Do you have another chance? If so, you'll die along with your father." He had to cut this fellow in two in order to witness him regenerate. Hearing that, Jian was enraged, but he still bent his head in a penitent way. If he's cut in two, the power of the wooden golem won't be sufficient to regrow his entire body. Dae Sung sensed something sparkling on the other side. It resembled a camera. Whether or not it was functional, Dae Sung displayed his aord from above, warning him that he'd let him go if he responded with 3 questions honestly. On hearing this, he twitched, and with a bewildered look, he once again inquired, "Is it you?" Dae Sung did not reply but suddenly extended his flame sword, keeping it straight toward the blonde guy's head, making him nearly W himself. He threatened in a menacing voice to cut Jinch in half if he spoke falsely, and the flame sword automatically gave out fiery rays, causing Jian to shiver and obey. The first question, "Are you the one who had disrupted the exam?" Jian and Lisa co-shived in horror, displaying a frightened face. Hong Jin-jong, upon hearing this, was keen, not able to assist but wonder what the answer to this question is. The control room was still like a falling leaf. Everyone was staring at the screen, waiting for Jin's response, who resembled a guilty puppy.